The grand hall of peace shimmered like a jewel cut from arrogance itself. Thousands of alien delegates filled its tiers, their scales, fur, and chitin catching the amber light that poured through the crystalline ceiling. Every color of the galaxy seemed represented. Violet-skinned envoys from the Leth Collective, translucent amphibs from Nareen, metallic-winged drones of the Cyrix Dominion. And in the midst of them all, under the vaulted spires that had never echoed a human footstep before today, walked one woman in a torn uniform. General Evelyn Cross of the United Nations Stellar Command moved with an unhurried calm that made the guards' hands twitch at their weapons. The laughter started before she reached the podium, low, silvery sounds of amusement that spread like ripples across the tiers. Some snorted. Others whispered translations in alien tongues. A few mimed the dangling tear in her sleeve as if mocking a performance. She smiled. The robe of the Galactic King flowed like molten gold as he leaned forward on his throne. Human, he purred through an interpreter sphere. Was your species so poor it could not spare fabric for its champion? Evelyn adjusted her cuff. The faint scent of ozone still lingered from plasma fire. No cologne could hide that. We call this, she said, glancing down at the frayed edge, a reminder of where not to get shot. Laughter rolled again, but it faltered this time. Her voice carried the steady resonance of someone used to command, not apology. She stepped onto the luminous disk at the center of the hall, her boots leaving faint dust marks on the polished floor. That dust was Terran soil, brought from the battlefield she'd just left. A Velthorian general, all mandibles and metals, clicked irritably. You arrive unarmed to the seat of our king. That is either bravery or madness. Both, she replied pleasantly, depending on how this meeting goes. He opened his mouth to retort, but the king raised a clawed hand. The hall dimmed slightly as luminescent spires hummed with energy. We have summoned humanity to witness its acceptance into the Concordium, the king announced. You fought well for primitives, but you will now lay down your arms and accept guidance from higher minds. Evelyn inclined her head. And if we don't, then your fragile planet will be, how do you say it, educated. Polite applause followed. Somewhere in the upper tier, a drone flashed a hologram of Earth being encircled by alien warships. Evelyn's jaw didn't tighten. Her eyes, though, darkened like deep water. Lovely animation, she murmured. Though I'd give it another 20 seconds before it's outdated. The translator stuttered as if uncertain whether to flag that as a threat. She folded her hands behind her back. You see, Your Majesty, humans tend to react poorly to ultimatums. We prefer options. Options. Yes. For example, option 1, we shake hands, trade recipes, maybe start a tourism exchange. Option 2, you keep talking about education, and I let my friends outside start their fireworks show. More laughter. Fireworks, the king repeated, amused. Big ones, she said. A few delegates chuckled nervously. The Ethran observers, thin silver-skinned mystics, tilted their heads, watching her closely. They were old enough to recognize the tone. The human wasn't bluffing. She was stalling. Her wristband pulsed faintly beneath the torn fabric. Evelyn's voice softened, conversational now. You know, on Earth, we have a saying, never mistake calm for surrender. Usually, right before something explodes. The king gestured lazily. You jest like a comedian of the outer colonies. Do you humans think laughter can hide weakness? Sometimes, she said. Sometimes it hides sharp teeth. The Ethran murmured among themselves. A guard approached, scanning her for weapons. The device beeped once, negative. Still, the king's expression hardened. You come here alone in rags, with no weapon, and speak of threats. Explain yourself. I came, Evelyn said, stepping closer to the dais, because we wanted to prove we can be civilized, that we can play by the rules. And yet, she smiled faintly, we also wanted to see how long it'd take before you realized we never stopped playing. Something shifted in the air, a vibration too low for most species to hear, but the Ethran flinched. Across the vast windows of the hall, a ripple of light streaked across the void outside, brief as lightning. The king frowned. A meteor? Evelyn's tone was light, almost teasing. Depends who you ask. Behind her, a holographic aide flickered to life. Human male, uniform crisp, face hidden by static interference. It lasted only a second before vanishing, but several delegates gasped. The king surged to his feet. What was that? Evelyn tilted her head, feigning confusion. Probably just a transmission error. Your network security seems a little open. You will answer directly. I am. She took a slow breath, letting the silence stretch until every whisper in the chamber died. You think we came here to beg? To join your council? To be civilized pets under your approval? The king's crown glimmered in the faint light of the twin suns beyond the dome. You came to survive, he said coldly. Evelyn nodded. Exactly. And that's what makes us terrifying. The hum deepened. Somewhere far away, the hall's glass ceiling trembled. Small motes of dust drifted down, glinting like stars. She lifted her eyes toward them, calm, unhurried, as if admiring snowfall. I fought on Arcturus 9, she continued softly. We lost 17,000 soldiers in 3 hours. You know what our medics did when supplies ran out? They melted armor plating to cauterize wounds. We don't die easy, Your Majesty. We learn. A long pause. Even the laughing delegates had fallen silent. Finally, the king chuckled, though uneasily. You speak boldly, for one already conquered. Oh, Evelyn said, voice almost tender. That's the part you still don't understand. She took a step forward, and the light from the throne reflected off her wristband's metal edge. For the briefest instant, the sigil of her unit shimmered. UNSC Black Fang Division. The king froze. The name was legend even among the stars. Evelyn lowered her arm, her tone returning to that warm politeness that made her words sharper than blades. Now then, shall we discuss peace terms before my ship finishes parking? Gasps rose as the ceiling darkened again. Through the translucent dome, a shadow fell across the sunlight, a vast shape descending, silent and geometric. It was not one of theirs. The king's translator failed to catch the tremor in his voice. What is that? Evelyn smiled, faint but unmistakable. A reminder, she said, of where not to get shot. And above the Grand Hall of Peace, the first human dreadnought broke orbit, its cannons aligned like a sunrise afire. The banquet began under false stars, tiny suns suspended above the chamber to mimic a sky none of the species shared. The long table stretched for half a mile, each seat carved for anatomy wildly different from the next. Chitin grooves, liquid tanks, oxygen domes. At the far end, the Galactic King reclined on his golden throne while servants carried trays of steaming blue meats and shimmering plasma wines. Humanity had one representative seat, General Evelyn Cross, set awkwardly between a hive-born matriarch and a gelatinous diplomat that pulsed when it breathed. Her torn uniform looked absurd amid all the silks, metals, and biofibers. Yet her poise made the contrast feel deliberate. She sipped from a plain glass of water, ignoring the alien delicacies. The king raised his chalice, his voice rippling through the translator field. To our new age of unity, to peace under reason. To reason, echoed the hall. Evelyn smiled faintly, clinking her glass. And to memory, she added softly. The Velthorian general beside her leaned close, mandibles clacking in amusement. Human, your world must be rustic. Is that why you bring water to a royal banquet? It's not water, she replied, peering into the glass as if inspecting a galaxy. It's discipline, keeps the blood sharp. A low chuckle passed around the table, but some eyes turned wary. She never seemed unsettled, only observant, like someone already taking inventory of exits. The gelatinous envoy beside her offered a cube of iridescent food. Taste, Earth General. It contains over 8,000 flavors. She sniffed politely. We prefer something simpler. Victory, for instance. The laughter this time was genuine, until a tremor passed through the floor. Light panels flickered. The music faltered for half a heartbeat. The king waved a claw dismissively. Seismic fluctuation. The moon is restless. Evelyn swirled her drink. So is mine. He narrowed his eyes. You joke as if you command storms. Sometimes they listen. Her charm drew the curious. The Ethran observers glided closer, their eyes like mirrors. One of them spoke in a voice layered with echoes. "Human, what is it that drives your kind to defy extinction? You fight long past logic." She considered the question. "We evolved on a planet that tried to kill us daily. Floods, fire, beasts, our own egos. We learned to find poetry in resistance." She smiled again gently. "Besides, it annoys people." That earned uneasy laughter. Behind her polite tone, something older hummed. A quiet, patient confidence. The king gestured, and the table rearranged itself in rippling segments to bring her nearer. "Your resistance entertains us, General. But tell me, why do you persist in defiance when your armies are shattered?" Evelyn set down her glass, folding her hands neatly. "Because you've mistaken silence for defeat. Our fleets went quiet because we told them to." The king's smile thinned. "You bluff." She shrugged. "Possibly. But humans play strange games. We call them poker. You'll understand the rules soon enough." Across the hall, the alien nobles laughed, thinking her remark a quaint Earth idiom. Only the Ethran's translucent faces betrayed discomfort. They whispered among themselves in frequencies too high for most to hear. Their leader leaned close to the king. "Her people's silence is not surrender. It is calculation." The king hissed, annoyed by superstition. "Calculation requires intellect." Evelyn's gaze wandered across the room. Every wall shimmered with data feeds, defense grids, planetary traffic, energy readings. She seemed to study them idly, though her fingers tapped a slow rhythm on the table. Short, long, long, short. Morse code. The pulse matched the flickering of her wristband. When she looked back at the king, her tone turned conversational. "Tell me, Your Majesty, what keeps your empire running? Surely it's not faith." He puffed up proudly. "Efficiency, coordination, obedience." "Interesting," she murmured. "And if the obedience failed?" "It cannot." "Everything can," she said. That quiet line settled like frost. Even the servants froze for an instant. She leaned back, crossing one leg, and the torn edge of her sleeve brushed against a silver dish, leaving a smudge of battlefield dust on the pristine metal. The king's gaze followed it, irritated by the imperfection. "I understand you wish to join us," he said mockingly. "You want a seat in the Concordium?" Evelyn tilted her head. "I want many things. Seats are near the bottom." The hall erupted again in laughter, half from amusement, half from the comfort of mockery. Only those listening closely caught the deliberate phrasing. Seats, bottom. Commanders knew code when they heard it. Operation phases disguised in jokes. The Velthorian beside her leaned in once more. "Human humor fascinates me. Always so blunt." "Better than being dull," she said, her voice turning almost kind. "On Earth, when people laugh at us, we listen carefully. Because laughter tells us what scares them." He shifted uncomfortably, mandibles twitching. Evelyn turned toward the king, her voice crisp. "If I may, Your Majesty, Earth brings an offer. Not submission. Partnership. Exchange of resources, culture, maybe a few survival tips." "Survival tips?" "You'll need them," she said lightly. Another tremor. Louder this time. Crystal decanters rattled. The twin suns outside the hall dimmed behind a drifting shadow. One the sensors could not identify fast enough. Evelyn's expression didn't change. The king rose slightly. "What is happening?" "Could be turbulence," she suggested. "Or my friends finding parking again." He slammed his chalice down. "You test my patience." "I test systems," she corrected. "Yours seem a little jumpy." Alarms flickered once more, then died. The control panels around the hall blinked erratically, streaming alien text. Asterisk unauthorized signal detected. Frequency infiltration. Unknown origin asterisk. The Ethran rose in alarm. Cut the network. Too late. The holoscreens across the banquet table flared to life. For a heartbeat, they displayed static, then human insignia, glowing white against black. UNSC Black Fong Division. Gasps rippled through the assembly. Evelyn calmly took another sip of her water. "General," the king rasped, "explain this intrusion." She placed her glass down gently, her reflection fractured across its surface. You invited us to dinner. We just brought dessert. The laughter was gone now. The room thrummed with tension, fear creeping under the grandeur. She stood, and her voice carried without amplification, steady and precise. You all wanted to see humanity. You called us barbarians in silk, predators pretending to be diplomats. You're half right. We don't crave war, but we adapt to it faster than you breathe. And while you debated treaties, we listened. Every frequency in this room has been broadcasting coordinates for hours. The king's skin lost its golden shimmer. To where? She smiled. Guess. For a moment, silence. Then the sky beyond the dome ignited. White lines descending in formation like falling stars. The air shuddered with sonic tremors. Evelyn's voice softened, almost pitying. You said peace under reason, but reason requires survival, and you declared yourselves gods. That was your first mistake. The first impact thundered through the palace's lower levels. Lights flickered red. Servants screamed. Evelyn remained motionless, backlit by the glow of distant explosions blooming across the horizon. She looked at the king one last time. I told you, she said quietly. Big fireworks. And as the alarms began to howl, she raised her glass toward him in a final toast. To peace built on mutual understanding. A shard of glass cracked in her hand as the ceiling trembled, and the banquet of pride dissolved into chaos. The first strike came like a heartbeat, felt before it was heard. The chandeliers of bioluminescent glass shattered, raining molten color over silks and scales. The grand hall that had glittered with arrogance moments ago now shuddered under the weight of war. Evelyn didn't flinch. She stood in the wash of light, her face calm, eyes reflecting fire. Around her, alien dignitaries screamed in a dozen frequencies, scrambling from their seats, as the ceiling split open in a slow, echoing groan. Outside, through the cracked dome, the blackness of space bloomed with burning stars, human drop pods, streaking down like silver rain. The king rose, roaring commands that translated into static. Shields. Activate planetary shields. But the control panels across the hall flickered in unison, then went black. Evelyn's lips curved faintly. Your Highness, she said, voice steady over the chaos. I believe your shields are preoccupied. A drone soldier lunged toward her, weapon raised. Evelyn didn't move. A flash of red light cut the creature down before it reached her. One of the falling pods had already breached the upper gallery. A human in black armor emerged from the smoke, helmet visor burning with data streams. He gave a small nod toward her. General Cross. Extraction ready. Not yet. Her tone left no room for argument. She walked across the trembling floor, boots crunching glass, toward the throne. The king's guards surrounded her in a tightening circle. Their armor gleamed like obsidian, their weapons crackling with plasma. Evelyn stopped 3 steps away. This is madness, the king hissed. You come to a peace table and bring annihilation. Peace, she said softly, isn't given. It's negotiated. The nearest guard swung. She moved first, sidestepping, catching his arm, and driving his own weapon upward into the soft tissue of his jaw. He collapsed without a sound. The next 2 hesitated. She gave them a look so cold it stopped them mid-strike. Behind her, more pods slammed into the outer spires, each impact shaking the hall like a heartbeat gone wild. The king backed toward his throne, claws curling around the golden armrests. Do you think your kind can survive the retaliation? You'll bring ruin on your world. Evelyn's gaze flicked to the smoldering windows, where Earth's fleet now filled the sky like an approaching storm front. You already tried that, she said. Didn't work the first time. He bared his fangs. You are but one planet. Then it must be embarrassing, she murmured, to be losing to it twice. She gave a subtle signal with her hand. Across the hall, human marines stormed through the collapsing corridors, weapons humming with restrained fury. They weren't killing indiscriminately. They were targeting command centers, cutting off communications, disabling engines. Precision masquerading as chaos. The king watched in disbelief as his generals fell one by one, their energy signatures extinguished like candles in wind. You planned this from the beginning." Evelyn crouched to pick up a piece of broken glass. The reflection caught her torn uniform, the dirt, the streak of blood across her cheek. "From the beginning," she said thoughtfully. "No, just since your first broadcast calling Earth manageable. We like to disprove predictions." Another explosion shook the hall. The great pillars cracked, sending waves of dust over the chaos. An alien delegate, a Leth noble who had mocked her earlier, crawled toward her, bleeding a viscous blue. "Please call them off. We will surrender." She knelt beside him. "It's not about surrender. It's about memory." Her tone wasn't cruel. It was weary, almost sad. "You can't build peace on the ashes of our dead and expect us to smile." A faint hum echoed from her wristband. She touched it, and a holographic interface bloomed midair, a real-time feed of the orbital battle above. Human ships moved like chess pieces across the stars. Alien fleets were scattering, some surrendering, others burning in streaks of red flame. Evelyn's voice softened, almost reverent. "Black Fong Division, hold fire on fleeing ships. The message is clear enough." "Yes, ma'am," came the reply through static. The king stumbled forward, rage quivering in his throat. "You've doomed us all." This hall was sacred. "It was a cage," she said. "Pretty, but still a cage." He raised his weapon, ornamental, ancient, meant for ceremony, not war. "You will die here, human." Evelyn's eyes met his, and for the first time, something like pity crossed her face. "Then you'd better hurry." He lunged. She sidestepped, caught his wrist, and twisted. The blade clattered. She drove it back into his chest with the strength of someone who had buried too many friends to hesitate anymore. The golden metal cracked against bone, and the king fell with a noise that was half snarl, half disbelief. His crown slipped from his brow, rolling until it stopped at her boot. For a long moment, the hall fell silent except for the groan of burning steel. Evelyn stood over the body, breathing steadily, her torn sleeve brushing against the cooling blood. Around her, alien guards froze, uncertain whether to avenge or flee. Her lieutenant approached, faceplate splattered with soot. "Orders, General?" Evelyn looked down at the fallen monarch. "Secure the survivors. Medical aid for the unarmed. Detain anyone still talking about education." He blinked. "Education." She smiled faintly. "They'll get the joke." The human troops fanned out, guiding stunned aliens into containment corridors. The once proud council now shuffled like ghosts beneath the collapsed dome. Evelyn climbed the steps to the throne, not to sit, but to look beyond it. Through the fractured ceiling, she could see the planet's twin suns breaking through the smoke. The light painted her uniform gold, turning the torn fabric into something almost regal. Her calm crackled again. "General, this is Fleet Command. The capital is secured. Shall we transmit the peace terms?" "Not yet," she said. "Let them breathe first. Fear needs air to grow." She turned back to the hall. The mirrors and mosaics reflected her figure dozens of times, a woman in tattered dress blues, standing where empires had ruled. The sight carried its own strange poetry. A whisper spread among the surviving delegates. Asterisk, the human didn't kill for dominance. She killed for silence. Asterisk. Evelyn exhaled slowly, then crouched to retrieve the fallen crown. It was heavy, far too ornate for her taste. She set it gently beside the king's body and straightened. "Keep your titles," she murmured. "We prefer results." Outside, thunder rolled as the last orbital guns went quiet. The flames above the capital began to fade, replaced by drifting clouds of debris that glittered like dying constellations. Her lieutenant looked uneasy. "General, what if they retaliate? Other systems might." "They won't," she said, still watching the horizon. "They've seen what peace looks like when we're polite." He hesitated. "And when we're not?" She turned her head slightly, one corner of her mouth curving into something colder than a smile. "That's the part they don't live to remember." A fragment of sunlight broke through the smoke, touching her torn sleeve, the same one the aliens had mocked. She lifted her arm, brushing the dirt from it, revealing the insignia once more, Black Fong Division. Below her, the king's crown caught the same light, and for a heartbeat, the two glowed together, ruin and authority side by side. Evelyn's voice was a whisper only the dead could hear. "Next time," she said, "send a woman with a clean dress. You'll know you're already lost." And as the hall's ceiling gave its final groan and collapsed into a cascade of light, her communicator pulsed again, an urgent signal from orbit. She looked up, calm, as dust and gold swirled around her. "Understood," she said quietly. "Proceed with Phase 2. Smoke drifted through the fractured dome like slow-moving ghosts, curling in ribbons around the golden pillars that still stood. The Grand Hall of Peace, once the galaxy's monument to arrogance, now echoed with the hum of medical drones and the whisper of boots against marble. Sunlight filtered through the smoke in pale strands, catching on floating ash, turning ruin into something hauntingly beautiful. Evelyn Cross stood at the center of it all, her uniform torn, her skin streaked with soot and blood, her expression unreadable. The king's body lay where it had fallen, still crowned by shadow. Around him, alien envoys sat or knelt in stunned silence. None dared speak first. The war had ended too quickly for them to believe it. Evelyn looked over the silent chamber and felt no triumph, only a deep, quiet ache, the kind that comes when victory costs too much to celebrate. Her lieutenant approached, removing his helmet. His face was young, eyes hollow from adrenaline and disbelief. "The palace is secure, General. Civilian casualties minimal. Fleet Command is requesting confirmation to transmit the surrender terms to the Concordium systems." Evelyn didn't turn. She was watching a shard of stained glass still clinging to a high window, its fractured edge catching light like a wound that refused to close. "Transmit," she said softly, "but not as surrender, as memory." "Yes, ma'am." He hesitated, then added, "Some of them still don't understand what happened." She finally faced him, her voice quiet. "Good. Fear does better work than clarity." He looked unsettled by that, but she was already walking forward, stepping over debris, her boots echoing faintly. The alien delegates watched her move, their conqueror in rags. There was something disarming about her calm, something unnerving in her composure. She didn't shout, didn't gloat. She merely existed in the wreckage, as if it were the natural outcome of logic. A small figure rose shakily from the crowd, the Ethran observer, tall and silver-skinned, robes now gray with dust. "Human," he said, his voice trembling with both awe and reproach, "you promise peace." Evelyn stopped before him. The faint wind stirred her hair, catching threads of light from the rising twin suns. "I did," she replied, "and I kept it. There's no war now. You slaughtered the king before witnesses." She inclined her head. He declared himself eternal. "I corrected the record." The alien's eyes dimmed with sorrow. "Do you not fear what the rest of the galaxy will think of you?" Her voice gentled, like a teacher speaking to a frightened student. "They'll think what they always do, that we're unpredictable, dangerous, best left alone. And that," she said, stepping closer, "is the closest thing to peace the universe ever gives us." Behind her, Marines moved through the hall, collecting survivors, offering water, tending wounds. Even now, discipline held. No cruelty, no gloating. Humanity didn't dance over its enemies. It simply erased the reason for the fight. The Ethran touched the floor, tracing a symbol in the dust. "You've changed the course of 10,000 years of diplomacy with one strike." Evelyn knelt briefly beside him, meeting his mirrored eyes. "Maybe that's the problem with 10,000 years of diplomacy," she murmured. "It never scared anyone enough to last." A deep rumble rolled from beyond the palace walls. She straightened as the sound faded into distance, the dull thunder of orbital ships shifting formation. The king's banners, once draped proudly across the balconies, hung in tatters, fluttering like flags at half-mast. Her lieutenant's voice came through the comm again, hushed. "General, the fleets across 5 systems have gone silent. No transmissions. No retaliation." "Of course not," she said. "They're waiting to see if we're merciful." He hesitated. "Are we?" Evelyn smiled faintly, but there was no warmth in it. "We're human." She walked to the center dais, where the king's throne had once gleamed. Now it was a mangled frame of molten gold and bone, the seat charred black. She ran her fingers over the metal, feeling its warmth. The gold left a stain on her glove, and she looked at it curiously, as though touching the residue of an old god. "Do you think they'll rebuild this place?" her lieutenant asked softly. "No," she said. "They'll preserve it. Every ruin needs a legend." He nodded uncertainly, not understanding that she wasn't talking about them. From the high windows came a flicker, sunlight breaking through the last cloud of smoke, falling directly on Evelyn's face. It softened the hard lines of her expression, revealing something human beneath the steel. She looked tired, not weak, just aware of what survival truly costs. An aide approached, whispering, "General, incoming transmission from Earth Command. They request a statement to broadcast with the new treaty." Evelyn turned to the recording drone hovering nearby. Its lens flickered alive, red light pulsing. For a moment she said nothing. Then, with quiet authority, she began, "To all civilizations within range. This is General Evelyn Cross of the United Nations Stellar Command. The war is over. The Concordium has fallen. Humanity seeks no vengeance, only remembrance." Her voice steadied, clear and sharp. "We did not come to destroy. We came to end the laughter. For centuries, you mocked the idea that we were dangerous. You said we were fragile, emotional, chaotic. You were right about one thing. We are emotional. That's why we win. Because nothing fights harder than something that loves." The drone's lens glowed brighter, capturing every syllable. "We remember every city burned, every child lost, every insult you thought we didn't understand. And now the galaxy will remember this. Kindness is not weakness. Mercy is not surrender. And humanity," she paused, eyes flicking toward the king's body, "is patient but never harmless." She ended the transmission with a motion of her hand. The hall fell silent again. The aliens around her looked smaller now, their faces drawn with the heavy realization that peace would never again mean safety. The Ethran spoke once more, his tone almost reverent. "What happens now?" Evelyn looked toward the broken dome. The twin suns were rising higher, their light golden and pure over the battlefield below. Human soldiers were already helping alien civilians from the rubble, some offering blankets, others quiet reassurance. The sight was almost tender in its contradiction. "Now," she said softly, "now we teach them what rebuilding looks like." Her lieutenant frowned. "After all this, you think they'll trust us?" She gave a small laugh, dry and quiet. "Trust? No. But they'll listen. That's a start." She reached down and lifted the king's fallen crown one last time, turning it over in her hands. The gold caught the sunlight again, reflecting not power but ruin. Without ceremony, she placed it on the cracked marble floor and stepped back. Her boot pressed into the dust beside it, leaving a clear human footprint next to alien royalty. "Make sure no one cleans this hall," she said to her men. "Let it stand." Her voice softened to a whisper meant only for herself. "We need reminders too." The comm crackled again, fleet command waiting. She lifted her wristband, the light blinking steady now. "Proceed," she said quietly. "Operation Dawnfall complete. Begin Operation Haven." Outside, the sky thundered again, not from war, but from ships descending to deliver aid. Humanity's fleet, once instruments of destruction, now cast vast, silver shadows over a broken world. Evelyn turned away from the rising sun. Her eyes lingered one last time on the fallen crown, the dust, and the silence she had created. Then she whispered, barely audible, "Peace earned the hard way." And as the light grew brighter, she walked through the shattered doorway, vanishing into the glow, leaving behind the hall where the galaxy had finally learned to be afraid of her kindness.